Alright, well here I am on the back part of the fuselage. First of all, let me see, I have got to get this push rod out, and it's got a control end on it. I'll have to unscrew it if it will. And it's actually pull right through. Okay, there's that one. And like I said, I keep these. Even though they're bent up, because I can use them for shorter linkages or whatever. And here we go. I gotta get this one, the little screw lock off of it, so I can pull the rod out. Okay. Now that should remove the tail. And it does. Okay. Very little of the tail section is in fair shape, although some of it is in fair shape. Now, again, this doesn't look like a piece you would normally keep, but I'll keep this. And the reason I will keep it is because in the future, on a stick, I may damage just this piece. And if that's the case, what you do is I would grind part of the tail section off of here to where I could use the elevator and the stab again if I needed to. So this is a usable piece. I'm going to go ahead and unhook my linkage here so I can pull my push rod off of it. Now granted, I may never use this ever, and if I don't, oh well, it takes up a little spot in my garage. I don't leave it in my building to take up a spot. It won't hurt anything. Okay, there you go. Pull my landing gear off there. Oh shit. That and my little battery leads got together there somehow. And that would have been bad. Golly, see, those were broken inside the airplane, and when I flipped it over, they laid together. You have to be real careful on stuff like that. I would have set a little fire. The chances of those laying together were pretty thin, but they sure did. I'm going to try to get in there and snip that little holder here so I can get that end off of there. I can. It's going to be hard to get to. Golly. Very hard to get to. Okay. I got to it though. Alright, now I got that end undone, so that won't be a problem. In just a few seconds, I could have had a fire. Very easily. I remember when I looked at this airplane right after the crash, I seen those wires sitting there, and I had the thought, I wonder if those are my battery wires, because if they are pulled off of the end and bare, that they could be a problem. And as you can see, it could have been. Anyway, I've got the battery right here. I'll have to get it out here in a second. Let me go ahead and remove the gear from the airplane, and then I'll have to tap out the the blind nuts the same way I showed you just a minute ago on the motor mount. Okay, well anyway, this part is probably fairly boring, so I will go ahead and get that done, and I will come back in a minute. Okay, I've got all the bolts out of the cap screws out of the landing gear. Landing gear's fine. I tapped all the blind nuts out of the fuselage, and now I'm getting ready to get the battery out of this. Now the battery in this airplane I had to mount in the tail. Me and Terry Honeycutt actually built this plane. This is the first plane that we built together 5 years ago. This one actually is. The one, I don't know if you can see it, the one back there is a 60 size stick, and I believe that was the second or third one we built together. That other airplane's got over 200 flights on it. This one probably only had maybe 60 or 70 flights on it. Yeah, that's all I had. But anyways, what I'm doing is I'm getting into the battery here, and made it removable. I'm making this little hatch screwed on with 2 screws. I don't know if you can see it, but the 2 screws are covered by tape, so I couldn't get to the heads, and it also taped over the area where it was. Here, maybe you can see it here. It was taped over the seams so the covering wouldn't pull up. And there it is. Now, I've learned a little more and I do this differently now. This worked, but when I have to mount the battery in the tail of an airplane now, is what I do is I make a little hatch that goes on with like 4 little screws, and then I mount the battery to the hatch, and that makes it really easily removable. Batteries and about anything on a remote control airplane, you know, you may have to replace or do something with it sometimes. So if you mount everything solid, it's going to be fairly hard to deal with. Now this little hatch is a good piece of ply. I'm going to save it. We put it on with CA hinges, which worked, but like I said, I do it quite a bit differently now. And there's my battery. Okay, this is Hydromax 2000 milliamp, and it's a little tight in here to get out. I'll get it out, but golly, it's actually really tight. It's going to come out though. Give it a little more room. There we go. Okay. And again, I'll have to test my battery and make sure it's okay. I've had real good luck with these. I've just recently started building on my own packs. These have been real good, and I've used a lot of them. I'm starting to build my own packs, and I'll show that in a different video. But anyway, this battery I will check and test many times to see if it's got any kind of problem after a crash, because it could have a problem. Now, I just saved my Velcro, anything that's savable. And I actually believe that's it. Now this is trash, and I will show you what I came up with on the salvage of this airplane, which doesn't look like much, but it'll be very helpful in building another airplane, because it's, well, almost all your hardware is fine. You might end up with a stripped servo. Of course, your push rods are bent up. Some of those may not be usable. Some of your ends are broke. But overall, there's quite a bit of hardware there salvaged out of that airplane. And that'll go a long ways into building another airplane. You got your landing gear. I've got my push rods. Most of them are reusable. I got my nose gear, which I actually don't use anymore. I make them into tail draggers. Okay. I've got lots of Velcro that I use to hold everything down. I got my receiver. I got my switch. I've got my aileron servos. Got my aileron push rods and control horns. More control horns, more screw locks. I've got motor mount bolts. I've got all my servos. Now these, I'm going to go ahead and knock these out too. These are the large blind nuts that they use for the nylon screws. And of course the nylon screws that went through the wing broke. But they'll work the same way usually. To knock out your blind nuts. And there goes one. I'll have to find that later. Anyway, these really come in handy. And there goes the other one. Anyway, there's the blind nuts. Now, I'm actually going to save this little piece of plywood. Most people wouldn't, but that's actually a usable piece. I can grind on that and make that usable. And I will locate my blind nuts that went flying across the room here in a minute. Well, there's one of them. Anyway, as soon as you get them knocked out, you take the little piece of the nylon screw out, and those will be very handy in the future. And that's it on the salvage of the 40 size Bigstick. My first airplane that me and Terry built together. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put all my stuff up and clean up my work area a little bit. And then I will go on to something else.